The laughter hit before she even saw it coming. Chief Petty Officer Ronan Hargrave ripped the M110 from Colette Ashford's hands with the casual violence of a man who had never been told no. The rifle spun through the air, caught in his massive grip, raised above his head like a trophy, while 15 SEAL operators watched from their positions around the command tent. National Guard sent us a fashion model to play sniper. The words echoed off canvas walls. Someone in the back whistled. Another man clapped slowly, mockingly, the sound sharp as gunfire in the enclosed space. Hargrave stood 6'3", neck thick as a concrete pillar, shoulders blocking the fluorescent light that buzzed overhead. 12 years of combat operations had carved his face into something between stone and scar tissue. He turned the rifle over in his hands, examining it like he'd found garbage on his doorstep. "Look at this, boys. Brand new weapon. Never been fired, just like its owner." More laughter. Louder now. Building momentum. Staff Sergeant Colette Ashford did not reach for her rifle. She stood at attention in the center of the tent, 5'7", 132 pounds, blonde hair pulled into a regulation bun that had already been mocked twice since her arrival 4 hours ago. Porcelain skin caught the harsh overhead lights. Natural freckles scattered across her cheekbones and the bridge of her sharp, aristocratic nose. But her eyes told a different story. Blue as frozen Arctic water, cold on the surface, hiding something deeper that could cut you open if you looked too long. Those eyes stared straight ahead at nothing and everything. "What's the matter, sweetheart?" Hargrave stepped closer, close enough that his breath warmed her cheek. "Cat got your tongue. Or maybe you're just scared of breaking a nail so you won't even try defending yourself." Lieutenant Barrett Gaines uncrossed his arms and moved into view. 5 deployments had carved permanent lines around his eyes, and contempt dripped from every syllable when he spoke. "The paperwork says she's a marksmanship instructor. Teaches civilians to shoot deer on weekends." He looked her up and down, like inspecting defective equipment. Apparently, someone with stars on their shoulders thought that qualified her for Overwatch support on a SEAL operation. Captain Felicity Mercer, the only female officer in the room, covered her mouth with perfectly manicured fingers. Intelligence Division. 3 years of careful maneuvering had made her the only respected woman in special operations circles at this forward operating base. She wasn't about to let some blonde nobody threaten that position. She probably thought this was a photo shoot for some recruitment poster. The tent erupted. Hargrave slammed the rifle onto the metal table. The sound cracked through the space like a gunshot, making 2 junior operators flinch. Then he leaned down until his face was inches from Colette's, close enough that she could count the broken capillaries in his bloodshot eyes. "Listen here, doll. Today's mission puts 12 lives on the line. American lives, men who've bled for this country while you were teaching housewives to hit paper targets." His voice dropped to a growl. "You really think we're going to trust our survival to some princess who's never seen blood?" Colette remained silent, but her right hand, unnoticed by anyone focused on her face, began tapping against her thigh. Index finger. Pause. Index finger. Index and middle together. Ring finger. Pause. Index finger. A rhythm that meant nothing to most people in the world. SHADOW. In the corner of the tent, Master Sergeant Garrett Holloway stopped breathing. 62 years old, 25 years in Force Recon, gray hair cropped close to his skull, face weathered by decades of sun and sand and decisions that kept him awake at night. He had come to this phobe 3 months ago as a training advisor, supposed to be his last deployment before retirement. Now he stood, frozen coffee cup trembling in his grip, watching a woman tap out a call sign that shouldn't exist anymore. Task Force Shadow. He knew that name, had heard it whispered in classified briefings about operations that never happened. soldiers who were never born. A unit that died in Syria 2 years ago, October 14th, 2023. Convoy 7. Every member confirmed killed in action. Bodies recovered, identified, buried with honors. Except one. One body never found. One operator listed as KIA, but evacuated under Black Protocol. Medical hold. Identity burial. The full ghost treatment. So why was this woman this supposed National Guard? Nobody tapping out their call sign like a prayer. Holloway's hand moved to his breast pocket where a 2-year-old letter rested against his heart. His brother's last letter. Nathan had written about his team leader 3 days before the convoy. 3 days before the IED that killed everyone. He had described her eyes, blue like Arctic ice, cold on the surface, but hiding something that could cut you open if you looked too long. Holloway looked at Colette Ashford and felt something crack inside his chest. The briefing continued as if the world hadn't just shifted on its axis. Lieutenant Gaines traced routes on the digital map with a laser pointer voice, clipped and professional when discussing enemy positions. Dismissive and cold when addressing Colette's role. Ashford takes overwatch position on the North Ridge, 700 meters elevation, grid reference 479er. He didn't look at her. She watches, she reports, she stays out of the way. His eyes swept the room, passing over her like she was furniture. Let the real operators handle the actual work. Questions. Silence. Good. Gear up. Wheels up in 45. The operators filed out in clusters, conversations resuming about loadouts and contingencies, and the girl who would probably freeze the moment anything went wrong. Gunnery Sergeant Lawson Ridley, the weapons specialist, made a comment about babysitting. Someone else wondered aloud if she even knew which end of the rifle the bullet came out of. Hargrave shouldered past Colette on his way out hard enough to knock her off balance. She recovered in half a heartbeat. Weight shifted to her back foot. Hands came up slightly, fingers curling before freezing. The motion was so fast, so practiced, it couldn't have been conscious. Recovery mechanics drilled into muscle memory through thousands of repetitions in places where hesitation meant a body bag. Holloway saw it. The movement wasn't civilian, wasn't even standard military. It was the ingrained response of someone who had been hit before, hurt before, who had learned to absorb impact and redirect momentum in environments where the next strike could be lethal. He filed it away with the Morse code and waited. The mess hall buzzed with pre-mission energy. 23 personnel crammed into a space designed for 15, the smell of powdered eggs mixed with weapon oil and adrenaline sweat. Conversations overlapped in the controlled chaos of men preparing to risk their lives. Colette sat alone at a corner table, tray untouched. Eyes tracking movement patterns she probably wasn't even conscious of cataloging. The door, the windows, the spacing between tables, sight lines to every exit, positions of every person in the room relative to her own. Captain Mercer held court at the center table, intelligence briefing materials spread before her like props in a performance. Her voice carried just far enough to reach Colette's table. You know how she got assigned here, special authorization above Lieutenant Gaines's clearance level. She let that sink in. Above a team leader's clearance, for a guard sniper, makes you wonder who she knows. Gunnery Sergeant Ridley leaned in with interest. 15 years as a weapons specialist had made him the unofficial gatekeeper of who belonged and who didn't. Or what she did to get noticed. The laughter rippled outward, quieter than in the briefing, but no less cruel. Colette continued eating with mechanical precision. Each bite measured, each swallow controlled, betraying nothing. Ridley pushed back from his table and crossed to where she sat, unable to resist testing this anomaly that had invaded his domain. Hey, pretty girl. He dropped into the seat across from her uninvited, settling in like he owned every chair in the building. You know anything about the M110 SAS, or do you only know how to use water guns? Colette looked up. Her expression remained neutral, but something in those frozen blue eyes made Ridley's smirk falter. Just for a second. Semi-automatic, gas-operated, rotating bolt 7.62 NATO. Her voice was flat, reciting facts like reading a grocery list. Effective range 800 meters with loopholed Mark V scope. Muzzle velocity 2,570 feet per second. Magazine capacity 10 or 20 rounds depending on configuration. Weight 11.24 pounds with scope and empty magazine. She returned to her food. Ridley's jaw worked silently. The smirk had vanished completely. Anyone can memorize specs from a manual. True, Colette didn't look up, but not everyone can put rounds on target at maximum effective range in crosswind conditions at night while hostiles are shooting back. And you can... Now she met his eyes. Direct, unflinching. Something ancient and cold moving behind that Arctic blue. I guess we'll find out. Ridley held her gaze for 3 seconds before looking away. He retreated to his table with a dismissive wave, muttering about lucky shots and paper qualifications. But Holloway, watching from across the room, noticed the uncertainty in the weapons specialist's stride. The first crack in the wall of contempt. Staff Sergeant Declan Vance approached Colette's table with the easy smile of someone who had mastered the art of appearing harmless. Communications specialist, 8 years in service, 34 years old, with the kind of face that blended into backgrounds and slipped from memory moments after leaving a room. Brown hair, brown eyes, medium build, forgettable by design. Don't let those guys get to you. He set his tray down across from her, uninvited but projecting friendliness rather than challenge. They're just threatened. New blood always makes the old guard nervous, especially when that blood comes with clearance levels nobody can explain. Colette studied him for a moment. You're not nervous. Me. Vance laughed, the sound warm and self-deprecating. I'm comms. I talk to satellites and radio waves, not exactly competing for the same glory. His smile widened. Besides, anyone who can recite weapon specs like that probably knows what she's doing. Probably. Word of advice, keep your head down today. Let them see you perform before you push back. Respect is earned around here, not given. Thank you for the advice. Anytime. He stood collecting his tray. We outsiders need to stick together, right? He walked away and Colette's eyes followed him for exactly 3 seconds. Long enough to notice how his gaze flickered toward the communications equipment in the corner of the mess hall. Long enough to catalog the slight tension in his shoulders that contradicted his relaxed demeanor. Long enough to observe his fingers tapping against his tray as he walked. Not random nervous habit. A pattern. Consistent. Rhythmic. Like someone keeping count of something, or sending a message to someone watching. She filed him under a mental category that had nothing to do with friendship. The corridor outside the mess hall was dim. Emergency lighting cast everything in shades of red and shadow. Most personnel had already moved to the equipment bay for final preparations. Colette was halfway to her gear when a massive hand closed around her shoulder, spun her into the wall. Hargrave's face filled her vision, twisted with something beyond mere contempt. We need to talk, Princess. About what? About you staying in your lane. He stepped closer, using his bulk to cage her against the concrete, 6'3", 240 pounds of muscle and malice pressing her into the wall. I've been doing this for 12 years. 12 years of earning my place, bleeding for my brothers, watching friends die so people like you can play soldier on weekends. Colette didn't flinch, didn't look away. Are you finished? Hargrave's hand shot up, grabbing the collar of her tactical shirt. The fabric bunched in his fist as he pulled her onto her toes, faces inches apart. I don't like you. Don't like your face, don't like the way you move, don't like the way you look at everyone like you know something we don't. The shirt fabric shifted as he pulled. Colette's collar stretched, revealing the curve of her shoulder, and 3 inches of something else. Hargrave's words died in his throat. Scars, not the clean lines of surgical intervention. These were the ragged signatures of shrapnel, the distinctive starburst patterns that came from explosive fragmentation. Dense, overlapping, covering her shoulder like a map of violence. What the? Hargrave's grip loosened. Where did you get? Colette's hand came up slowly, almost gently. She removed his fingers from her collar one by one. Montana. Her voice was flat. Hunting accident. She straightened her shirt and walked away, leaving Hargrave standing in the blood-red light with questions he didn't know how to ask. The equipment bay hummed with activity. Operators conducted final checks on weapons and gear. Magazines counted and recounted. Optics adjusted. Communications equipment tested. Colette moved to her assigned station and began her preparations. She field stripped the M110 in 47 seconds. Holloway counted. He couldn't help himself. 47 seconds for complete disassembly, inspection of every component with methodical precision, reassembly with fingers that never hesitated, never fumbled. National Guard snipers trained to qualification standards. They did not develop expertise that matched Delta Force operators. Ridley noticed too. His expression cycled through disbelief, denial, and something approaching professional respect before settling on confusion. Ashford, where'd you learn to strip a rifle like that? Colette didn't look up from her optics check. Practice. That's not practice, that's muscle memory, that's thousands of hours. Montana winters are long, lots of time to practice. Lieutenant Gaines' voice crackled through the bay speakers before Ridley could push further. All personnel, final brief in 5. Gear up and move out. The moment passed, question unanswered. Another fragment added to the growing pile of inconsistencies that Holloway was collecting like evidence at a crime scene. He found her at the memorial wall. Every fob had one. Photographs of soldiers who had paid the ultimate price, faces frozen in time, names that would never grow old. Colette stood before the wall, but she wasn't looking at the faces there. Her eyes had that 1,000-yard stare, looking through the wall, through time itself. Holloway approached slowly. Most people avoid this place before a mission. She didn't turn. Most people have the luxury of forgetting. He moved to stand beside her. I was Force Recon, 25 years. Taught me certain patterns, the way operators move, the way they breathe under pressure, the way they communicate when words can get you killed. Colette remained silent, but her stillness changed, became focused, alert. That tapping back in the briefing, your fingers against your thigh. Holloway's voice dropped. That wasn't nervous habit. That was Morse code. A muscle twitched in her jaw. You tapped SHADOW, 6 letters, over and over. He paused. I know that word. Heard it whispered in classified briefings about operations that never happened. Colette turned slowly. Those Arctic eyes met his, assessing, calculating. You have good eyes for a training advisor. I have a brother. Had a brother. Holloway's voice caught, steadied. Nathan Holloway, Sergeant First Class. He was assigned to a unit I wasn't supposed to know about. Task Force Shadow. Something shifted in Colette's expression. A crack in the ice, quickly sealed. He wrote letters. Couldn't talk about operations, but he wrote about his people. His commanding officer. Holloway reached into his breast pocket, pulled out the worn envelope. He wrote about a woman, 3 days before Convoy 7, said she was the quietest person he'd ever met. Said when she spoke, everyone listened. The envelope trembled slightly in his grip. He said she could read wind like poetry and shoot like God had given her a gift and a curse in equal measure. Colette's breathing had changed, shallow, controlled. He described her eyes, blue like Arctic ice, cold on the surface, but hiding something that could cut you open if you looked too long. Holloway met her gaze. "I'm looking at those eyes right now, Staff Sergeant. And I'm asking you, one soldier to another. Are you her? Are you the one he died protecting?" Colette's mask held 2 years of practice, 2 years of becoming a ghost, but her hands had curled into fists at her sides, knuckles white. "Your brother was a hero." Her voice came out rough. "He saved lives that day, more than anyone will ever know. He saved yours." It wasn't a question. Colette closed her eyes, just for a moment. "The woman you're describing died in Syria, Master Sergeant. October 14th, 2023. Convoy 7. Whatever you think you see, you're seeing a ghost." Holloway didn't look away. "Maybe, but ghosts don't tap Morse code. Ghosts don't field strip rifles in 47 seconds. And ghosts don't carry shrapnel scars from explosions that killed everyone except them." The radio on Colette's vest crackled to life. "All personnel! Birds are spinning. Final load in 5 minutes." She stepped back from him, creating distance, rebuilding walls. "Your brother was one of the best soldiers I never had the privilege of serving with. I'm sorry for your loss." She turned to leave. "Staff Sergeant." She stopped but didn't turn. "Whatever you're really doing here, whatever secrets you're keeping." Holloway's voice carried the weight of 25 years and 2 years of grief. "My brother believed you were worth dying for. I'd like to find out if he was right." Colette stood motionless for 3 heartbeats. Then she walked away without looking back. But Holloway watched her go, watched the way she moved through the equipment bay, watched the way every operator's eyes followed her with contempt. And he knew. That woman was no National Guard weekend warrior. That woman was a weapon. And whatever had brought her to this FOB, it had nothing to do with providing Overwatch support. For a routine patrol, the Blackhawks' rotors beat the air into submission. 17 personnel crammed into the cargo bay, bodies pressed tight, equipment shifting with every movement. Colette sat with her back against the fuselage, rifle case between her knees, eyes closed. Turbulence hit hard as they crossed the first ridge. The helicopter bucked and yawed. Hargrave grabbed his harness. Gaines's knuckles went white on the safety rail. 2 junior operators exchanged nervous glances. Colette's breathing never changed. 4 seconds in. Hold 4. 4 seconds out. Hold 4. Box breathing. Stress management technique taught to operators who faced situations where panic meant death, not standard curriculum for weekend warriors. Holloway watched from across the cargo bay, adding another entry to his mental file. The helicopter banked hard, beginning its descent. 30 seconds to insertion. Gaines was first on his feet. Standard formation. Fire teams Alpha and Bravo take point. Overwatch proceeds independently to designated position. His eyes found Colette without quite looking at her. 700 meters elevation, North Ridge. Watch and report. Nothing else. Understood. One word, no emotion. The helicopter touched down in a cloud of dust and dead leaves. Operators poured out in rehearsed sequence. Weapons up, eyes scanning threat vectors. Colette was last. She moved with a grace that seemed almost lazy until you realized she had assessed every sight line within 300 meters before her boots touched dirt. Hargrave intercepted her at the tree line. "Remember your play stall. Way up there, out of the way, where you can't hurt anyone." Colette looked at his hand near her face, then at his face, then past him toward the ridge. Your magazine tape is wrong. What? Your mag tape. You've got it wrapped for quick release, but the angle's off by about 15 degrees. You'll lose half a second on every reload. Hargrave's face flushed. Might want to fix that before someone starts shooting. She stepped around him and vanished into the forest, leaving Hargrave standing at the tree line with his magazine tape exactly where she'd said it was. Angled wrong. The climb was brutal, 700 meters of near vertical terrain. Loose shale that shifted under every footstep. Unstable handholds that crumbled at the slightest pressure. Most soldiers would have stopped to rest. Colette moved like the mountain owed her money. 43 minutes from base to overwatch position. No breaks. No hesitation. When she reached the rocky outcrop, she wasn't even breathing hard. She had scouted this location 2 days earlier. Before her orders existed, before anyone knew she was in the country, this position offered 360-degree sight lines. Natural cover, multiple escape routes, and a clear view of the valley where her real mission waited. She settled into the natural depression and began establishing her hide site. Ghillie netting deployed with practiced efficiency. Range card constructed from memory. 400 meters. 600 meters. 740 meters. 800 meters. 900 meters. She marked each distance on her mental map. Calculated adjustments for elevation differential. Through her loopholed scope, she watched the SEAL team advance through the valley below, and her concern grew with every passing minute. Their formation was wrong. Too tight. 5 meters between operators, sometimes less. In dense forest with limited sight lines, a single automatic weapon could tear through half the team before anyone found cover. She keyed her radio. Overwatch to actual. Recommend adjusting route to bypass grid reference 479er. Terrain suggests potential ambush corridor. Static. Then Gaines' voice dripping with condescension. Overwatch, stick to watching. Route planning is above your pay grade. Actual out. Colette didn't respond. Instead, she returned to her scope and began systematic scanning of the opposing ridgeline. The morning light was good now. Flat and even. Perfect for catching reflections that didn't belong. Her crosshairs swept slowly across the terrain. And there, 800 meters out, a bush that was too green for autumn, too still when wind moved everything else around it. She adjusted parallax and magnification. The bush wasn't a bush. It was military-grade camouflage netting, draped over a position that faced directly into the valley, directly into the kill zone. Her finger found the radio. Overwatch to actual. Be advised. Possible hostile position. Grid reference 478. Elevation 200 meters above your current position. Recommend immediate cover. Gaines's response came faster this time. Angrier. Overwatch. We've got ground-level visibility you don't have. Stop clogging the channel. Actual out. Colette's jaw tightened. She swept her scope in a slow arc across the opposite slope, and her blood went cold. Not one position. 3 PKM machine guns, Soviet-era weapons. Capable of laying down 700 rounds per minute each, arranged in an L-shaped formation, overlapping fields of fire. Textbook ambush configuration, designed for one purpose, total annihilation. The SEAL team had 3 minutes before they walked into a kill zone they couldn't escape. Someone had sold out Task Force Shadow 2 years ago. Someone had told the enemy exactly where her convoy would be. 12 of her brothers and sisters were dead because someone had traded their lives for money. And now, watching history prepare to repeat itself, Colette Ashford made a decision. She wouldn't let it happen again. Whatever came next, whatever it cost her. Whoever had to die, she would not let another team walk into slaughter while she watched from a ridge and followed orders. She settled behind her rifle, controlled her breathing, and waited for the killing to begin. The first PKM opened fire at 08:52 hours. The sound was distinctive, heavy rhythmic hammering that echoed off valley walls like thunder trapped in a bottle. 100 rounds per minute tearing through foliage bark and the thin cover that operators dove behind with desperate urgency. Colette watched through her scope as formation discipline evaporated into survival instinct. Bodies scattered, rolling behind logs and rocks that barely covered half their mass. Someone screamed. Dirt fountained where rounds impacted. Bark exploded into clouds of splinters. Contact multiple positions northwest ridge. Gaines' voice had lost its arrogance. Raw fear lived there now. Hargrave covering fire, Ridley locate those guns. 2 more PKMs joined the chorus, creating a symphony of destruction that pinned the Americans behind inadequate cover. 3 weapons firing in coordinated bursts, overlapping fields of fire that left no safe ground. Man down, Lawson's hit leg wound. Hargrave's voice cracked over the radio. He needs evac now, Apache support, what's the ETA? The response came back cold and clinical. Apache support 22 minutes out. Repeat 2 minutes, hold position. We don't have 22 minutes. Colette's world narrowed. The chaos below faded to background noise. The screaming, the gunfire, the desperate radio traffic. All of it became distant, irrelevant to the task at hand. The first PKM position, already adjusting fire. The gunner knew his business. Walking rounds toward the largest concentration of American bodies. Professional, methodical, lethal. 740 meters, wind from the west at 3.2 meters per second, elevation differential requiring 4 clicks of adjustment, temperature affecting bullet velocity by approximately 12 feet per second. Her breathing dropped into rhythm. In, out, hold. The world contracted until nothing existed except the crosshairs and the target. She squeezed the trigger. The M1110 whispered through its suppressor. Recoil absorbed by years of training. The rifle barely moved in her grip. Through the scope, she watched the gunner's body snap backward. Round impacting just left of center mass. He collapsed without a sound, slumping over his weapon. Cycled the bolt, brass casing ejected, spinning into the rocks. New round chambered in the time it took to exhale. The assistant gunner reached for the weapon. Smart, trained. He knew the PKM needed to keep firing, not smart enough. Second round crossed 740 meters in a fraction of a second. Impact lower torso. He folded over the weapon he'd been reaching for. PKM north is down, someone shouted over the radio. Confusion rippling through the chaos. Who took that shot? Who's engaging? No answer came. No one knew who was helping them. No one could see the angel on the ridge. Colette was already acquiring her next target. 800 meters, second PKM position, gunner laying down suppressive fire that kept 4 SEALs pinned in a depression. Adjust windage. 2 clicks right for the crosswind, 1 click up for the elevation fire. The gunner dropped mid-burst. His assistant panicked, scrambled to his feet, flight response overriding training. Colette led him by 18 inches. She squeezed. He made it 4 steps before his legs stopped working. Second gun down. Ridley's voice carried wonder beneath the combat stress. I don't know who's shooting, but keep it up. Third PKM position. Most dangerous of all. Elevated slightly higher than the others. The gunner there was smart, staying low, using his assistant as a spotter. 900 meters, nearly a kilometer. At this distance, bullet drop was measured in feet rather than inches. Wind variations could push a round off target by a full body width. The Coriolis effect actually mattered. Colette made the calculations the way other people calculated tips at restaurants. Fire, miss, Round struck rock inches from the gunner's position, close enough to spray him with stone fragments. His head came up, eyes scanning the far ridge. He knew now, knew a sniper was hunting him. He chose to fire, swinging the PKM toward the Americans below, committing to the mission even as death reached for him. Second round found him just as he was settling behind his sights. Impact at the junction of shoulder and neck. He dropped across his weapon. The assistant gunner grabbed the PKM. Young, terrified, determined to avenge his commander. Third round, center mass. He sprawled across his commander's body, and the valley fell silent. All PKM positions neutralized. Colette's voice came through the radio. Flat, professional. Recommend immediate casualty evacuation for wounded personnel. Static. Then Gaines' voice stripped of everything except disbelief. Who is this? She didn't answer. There was no need. But the mission wasn't over. Movement on her scope. Eastern approach. 3 figures ascending her ridge through dead ground. They knew where she was. Someone had told them. Overwatch to actual. Hostile force approaching my position from the east. 3 combatants request guidance. Gaines's response surprised her. Can you relocate? Negative. Relocation removes Overwatch support for your position during evacuation. A pause. Something had changed in his voice. We can hold. Get yourself to safety. Negative actual. I'm staying on mission. She shifted to a secondary firing position, sacrificing sight lines on the valley to cover the eastern approach. The 3 figures emerged from behind a rock formation at 120 meters. Moving fast, rifles up, too fast, not checking corners. The first fighter reached open ground, fire. He went down mid-stride. The second fighter dropped flat immediately, smart, trained. The third made a mistake. Moved to assist his fallen comrade. Fire. He spun and fell, 2 down, 1 hidden. Colette waited. Mountain wind carried sounds from below. Apache rotors growing louder. She needed to hold for 5 more minutes. Movement. The remaining fighter was crawling, using dead ground to approach from an angle she couldn't cover without exposing herself. At 60 meters, he made his move. Sprinting from cover, rifle coming up, closing distance fast. Colette didn't use the sniper rifle. She drew her sidearm, M17 clearing leather in a motion so practiced it required no conscious thought. 3 rounds, center mass. The fighter collapsed 8 meters from her position. Close enough to see the surprise on his face. Close enough to watch the light leave his eyes. Overwatch to actual. Eastern threat neutralized. 3 combatants down. Position secure. Below the first Apache cleared the ridge, Colette began breaking down her position. Brass casings collected, netting packed. Evidence of her presence erased. 12 rounds fired at the PKM positions. 3 rounds at the fighters on the ridge. 15 rounds total. 12 confirmed kills from the rifle. 3 from the sidearm. No misses, no wasted ammunition. The descent took 20 minutes. When she reached the valley floor, extraction was nearly complete. Wounded loaded onto the first Black Hawk. Ridley stabilized, but pale tourniquet tight around his thigh. Hargrave's hands were still shaking. Gaines intercepted her before she reached the helicopter. You're not going anywhere. His voice was harder than before, but uncertainty lived beneath the authority. Those shots, that accuracy, that's not National Guard training. It's not. Colette met his eyes. It's practice. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting, Lieutenant. Hargrave appeared at Gaines's shoulder. His voice had lost its contempt. We want to count the brass, verify the shots. Colette handed over the M110 without protest. Hargrave examined the chamber, checked the magazine. 12 rounds missing. His voice was hollow. 12 rounds for 12 confirmed kills, 900 meters, no misses. He looked up at her. Impossible. And yet... Master Sergeant Holloway emerged from the second Black Hawk, his eyes fixed on Colette with intensity. 12 for 12. Ranges up to 900 meters, combat conditions, no spotter. He approached slowly. I've only seen shooting like that once before in a classified briefing about operators who don't exist. He stopped close enough that only she could hear. A unit that died in Syria 2 years ago. Colette's expression didn't change. Sounds like quite a briefing. It was. 13 operators, 12 confirmed killed, 1 never recovered. He paused. You know what the intelligence community calls someone like that? What? A ghost. I'm not a ghost, Master Sergeant. I'm National Guard, weekend warrior, paper target shooter. She reached for her rifle. Nothing more. The shooting says different. The shooting says I had a good day. She turned toward the extraction helicopter. We should leave before more hostiles arrive. Holloway let her go, but his eyes followed her every step. 12 for 12 at impossible ranges, Morse code for a dead unit's call sign, shrapnel scars and operator breathing and field strip times that matched special operations standards. The evidence was piling up, and Holloway was beginning to understand that whatever secrets Colette Ashford was hiding, they were far bigger than any cover story could contain. The Black Hawk touched down at Foe B Sentinel as the sun reached its apex. Medical teams swarmed the wounded. Debriefing officers materialized with tablets and recording devices. Colette slipped through the confusion like water through fingers. But some questions followed regardless. Staff Sergeant Ashford. Colonel Theodore Ashworth's voice cut through the noise. Silver-haired and ramrod straight, 55 years old with the bearing of a man who had commanded soldiers for 3 decades. My office now, not a request. The operations center was cool and quiet. Ashworth closed the door. 12 confirmed kills, ranges up to 900 meters, no misses. He settled into his chair. In my 31 years of service, I've seen exactly 3 shooters capable of that kind of performance. All of them were special operations. His eyes hardened. None of them were National Guard marksmanship instructors from Montana. Sir, my file is available for your review. I've reviewed your file. It says you're a weekend warrior who teaches civilians to shoot deer. His voice dropped. Your file is a lie. My file is what the Army says it is, Colonel. I made a call while you were in transit. Pentagon, Special Operations Command asked them to pull everything on Colette Ashford. Something flickered behind Colette's eyes. You know what they told me? They told me your file is classified above my clearance level. They told me accessing the full record requires JSOC authorization. They told me to stop asking questions. He stood, moving closer. Who classifies a National Guard sniper's file at JSOC level, Staff Sergeant? I don't know, sir. I just go where I'm told. You're lying. I'm following orders, Colonel, same as you. The standoff stretched for 15 seconds. Ashworth broke first. Whatever you're really doing here, whatever secrets you're keeping, they saved 12 American lives today. That buys you time. Understood, sir. Colette turned to leave, then paused at the door. Colonel, the ambush today. 3 PKM positions pre-sighted on our exact route. Enemy fighters who knew exactly where to find my overwatch position. She turned to face him. That's not bad luck. That's intelligence. Someone told them where we'd be. Ashworth's face went still. You're suggesting we have a leak. I'm suggesting it's worth investigating, sir. Before more Americans die. She left before he could respond. The memorial wall stood empty in the evening light. Colette found Holloway there, standing before a photograph, young face, bright eyes, Nathan Holloway, 29 years old when he died. I know who you are. Holloway didn't turn. Not the cover story. I know what Wraith 1 means. I know what Task Force Shadow was, and I know that my brother died protecting someone who's supposed to be dead. Colette moved to stand beside him. Task Force Shadow. Convoy 7. October 14th, 2023. Holloway's voice cracked slightly. 12 operators killed in action. Except one. One body never found. One operator evacuated under protocols that don't officially exist. He turned to face her. They call it Ghost Protocol. Identity burial. Complete erasure from every official record. Your brother was a hero, Master Sergeant. Colette's voice came out rough. He saved lives that day. He saved yours. Yes. One word, one admission. Nathan threw himself over me when the second IED detonated. The convoy had already been hit once. We were taking fire from 3 positions. Her hands curled into fists. The second device was buried in the road. Pressure activated. I was moving toward a casualty when it triggered. Nathan saw it before I did. He had maybe half a second to react. She closed her eyes. He used that half second to put his body between me and the blast, absorbed the shrapnel that should have killed me, gave the extraction team enough time to reach our position. Holloway's face glistened, tears he didn't try to hide. He wrote about you, said you were the best commanding officer he'd ever served under. Nathan was one of the best soldiers I ever had the privilege of leading. And every day since Syria, I've been trying to be worthy of what he sacrificed. Why are you here, the real reason? Because someone betrayed us. The words carried weight that pressed down on both of them. Someone sold our position, our route, our timing. 12 of my brothers and sisters are in the ground because someone wanted money more than honor. Her jaw tightened. I'm here to find out who. You think the leak is connected to this FOB? I know it is. Today's ambush wasn't coincidence. Someone on this base is feeding intelligence to the enemy. The same network that killed your brother. Do you have suspects? 1. Something shifted behind Colette's eyes. Communications specialist, Staff Sergeant Declan Vance. Vance. He seemed so harmless. Perfect cover for someone selling secrets. She held up her hand. The interference during the ambush was selective. 1 frequency band, the exact band the enemy would need to coordinate. Atmospheric interference affects all frequencies equally. Whatever disrupted our communications was deliberate. Second finger. His behavior in the mess hall. He approached me with advice, friendly, but his eyes kept flickering toward the communications equipment, and his shoulders were tense despite his relaxed demeanor. Third finger. His finger movements when he walked away, not random. A pattern, consistent, like someone sending a message. Holloway reached into his pocket and pulled out the worn envelope. Nathan's last letter, he wrote it 3 days before the convoy. He said he had concerns about security, said something felt wrong, but he couldn't identify what. Colette took the letter. Her hands trembled as she opened it. When she looked up, her eyes were glistening. He knew. Suspected at least. 3 days before, and he already felt something was wrong. He trusted his instincts. Learned that from you. I should have listened. Should have pushed harder when he raised concerns. You can't blame yourself for what happened. I don't blame myself for the ambush, Master Sergeant. I blame myself for surviving when they didn't. Holloway stepped closer. Nathan didn't save your life so you could waste it on guilt. He saved your life because he believed you were worth saving. He put his hand on her shoulder. Let me help you find the people who killed him. Let me help you get justice for my brother and your team. Colette looked at his hand, at his face, at the grief and determination behind his eyes. For 2 years she had worked alone, trusted no one. But standing here looking at the brother of the man who had saved her life, she felt something shift. Declan Vance. Start with his financial records. Look for unexplained payments, sudden debt clearance. Holloway nodded. I have contacts. People who can pull information without raising flags. Be careful. If Vance suspects he's being investigated, he'll either run or accelerate whatever he's planning. Colette turned back to the memorial wall, to Nathan's photograph. Your brother believed in honor, Master Sergeant. Believed that serving something greater than himself meant something. She reached out and touched the photograph. I'm going to find the people who betrayed that belief, and I'm going to make them answer for what they did. What do you need from me? Information, access, someone with legitimate authority who can investigate without raising suspicion, someone who has a personal stake in finding the truth. You're asking me to help you hunt a traitor. I'm asking you to help me get justice for Nathan, for all of them. Holloway's face cycled through grief, rage, and finally cold determination. What do you need me to do? Colette looked at the memorial wall one last time. First we confirm Vance is dirty, then we follow the chain, find out who's running him, who pays his bill. Her eyes hardened. And when we find the person at the top of that chain, the one who planned Syria, the one who sold out my team and got your brother killed. She turned away from the wall. We make them pay. The hunt was beginning, and the ghost was finally ready to stop hiding. The financial records told a story that words never could. Holloway spread the documents across the table. 3 days of careful investigation. Contacts called, favors traded. Information pulled from databases that officially didn't track military personnel finances. Declan Vance had been drowning in debt 18 months ago. Gambling, online poker sites, sports betting through offshore accounts, $63,000 in the hole, credit cards maxed, personal loans from predatory lenders. Then 6 months ago, everything changed. Every debt paid, every account cleared, no explanation, no inheritance. Just money appearing from nowhere. Recruitment pattern. Colette studied the documents. They find someone vulnerable, someone desperate. Then they make the problems disappear. And the asset is born. Holloway's voice carried disgust. He sold us out for gambling debts. He sold your brother for less than most people pay for a car. Captain Fenwick Vale had provided additional intelligence. The FOB's intelligence officer had been conducting his own quiet investigation at Colonel Ashworth's request. Vance's equipment logs showed maintenance sessions that didn't correspond to any actual maintenance needs. Time blocks where his station was active but produced no recorded output. Gaps in the communication records that aligned with known intelligence compromises. And yesterday's ambush. The interference report Vance filed blamed atmospheric conditions. Solar flare activity. But Vale had checked the solar data. Minimal activity. Whatever had blocked those frequencies wasn't natural. We have enough. Holloway gathered the documents. Financial evidence. Communication logs, pattern analysis, enough to arrest him. Not yet. Colette's voice stopped him cold. Vance is a node, not the source. Taking him now gives us one traitor, one name. She shook her head. I want the network. I want the handler who recruited him. I want the chain that leads back to whoever planned Syria. How do we get that? We apply pressure, make him nervous enough to reach out to his handlers. Then we watch where the message goes. She stood. I have an idea. The shooting range stretched empty in the afternoon heat. Colette set up at the 300-meter line. To anyone watching, she appeared focused on personal practice. In reality, she was waiting. Vance arrived 17 minutes later. Mind if I join you? His smile was friendly. The same harmless demeanor he'd projected since her arrival. Help yourself. He set up 3 positions down, but his eyes kept drifting toward her. Hell of a thing yesterday, the shooting. Never seen anything like it. Lucky day. Lucky, Vance laughed. Too loud, too forced. 900 meters in combat conditions isn't luck. That's training most people don't even know exists. Colette squeezed off a round. Center mass at 300 meters. Where'd you learn to shoot like that? Montana National Guard doesn't produce Tier 1 snipers. I practice. Practice doesn't explain what you did. Practice doesn't give you the kind of calm you showed when those fighters were climbing toward your position. His voice shifted, something harder emerging. What were you before Montana, before the National Guard, before the cover story? Colette turned to face him. What were you before communications, Vance? The question caught him off guard. His smile flickered. Nothing special, college dropout, enlisted when I ran out of options. Some of us have boring stories. Some of us do. She held his gaze. Some of us have stories that are more complicated than they appear. The air between them changed. Two people who knew the other wasn't what they pretended to be. You know something, Vance's voice dropped. About yesterday, about the interference. I know a lot of things. And what are you going to do with that knowledge? Colette smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. What I always do, apply it appropriately. She turned back to the range and fired 3 more shots. All center mass. All perfect. When she looked again, Vance was gone. His equipment remained at his station. Abandoned in his haste to leave, something had broken. The prey knew it was being hunted. The emergency briefing convened at 0600 hours. Every member of the SEAL team present, support staff, intelligence officers, communications personnel. Colonel Ashworth stood at the front, flanked by 2 MPs. Vance sat in the 3rd row. His smile was gone. This briefing is classified at the highest level. Ashworth's voice carried the weight of 3 decades of command. What is discussed here does not leave this room. Any breach will be prosecuted as treason. The room went silent. Over the past 72 hours, we have conducted an investigation into a suspected intelligence leak. Someone on this base has been feeding operational information to enemy forces. Murmurs rippled through the assembled personnel. Someone in this room may be responsible for the ambush that nearly killed SEAL Team 7 2 days ago. Vance's hands twitched. The evidence has been collected. The suspect has been identified. Ashworth nodded to the MPs. Staff Sergeant Declan Vance, you are under arrest for espionage, treason, and conspiracy to commit murder of United States military personnel. The room exploded. Vance was on his feet instantly, face transformed from controlled tension to desperate animal. He lunged toward the door, everyone except Colette. She was already in his path. A precise strike to his solar plexus folded him in half. A joint lock put him on the floor before anyone else had finished processing what was happening. Her knee pressed into his back. His face ground into the concrete. Don't. Her voice was soft, meant only for him. I have waited 2 years for this moment. Don't make me enjoy it more than necessary. The MP secured his wrists, hauled him upright. You don't understand. Vance's voice cracked. They have leverage. They threatened people I care about. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice. Colette's eyes were flat, empty of everything except judgment. Your choice killed 11 of my people. Your choice nearly killed 12 more 2 days ago. She stepped closer. Your choice ends now. Your people. Confusion flickered across his features. Who are you? Ashworth moved to stand beside Colette. Staff Sergeant Vance, allow me to introduce Master Sergeant Colette Ashford, call sign Wraith 1, the only survivor of Task Force Shadow, the unit you helped destroy 2 years ago in Syria. The color drained from Vance's face completely. No, that's impossible. They said she was dead. Everyone was dead. They were wrong. Colette's voice was barely above a whisper. Ghosts have a way of coming back. The MPs dragged him toward the door, but Colette blocked their path. The network. Give me names. Give me the handler who recruited you. Give me the chain that leads back to whoever planned the Syria ambush. I can't. They'll kill everyone I love. They're going to do that anyway. The only question is whether you help me stop them first. She straightened. Think about it. You have until your interrogation begins. The MPs pulled him through the door, and Colette stood motionless in the center of the room, surrounded by operators looking at her with expressions that mixed shock, respect, and dawning comprehension. Task Force Shadow. Gaines's voice was hollow. That was the Syria operation. 13 operators, 12 killed in action. Colette turned to face him. Convoy 7, October 14th, 2023. I was the team leader. I was supposed to die with them. But you didn't. No. Something shifted in her expression, the ice cracking just enough to let something human show through. I survived because Sergeant Nathan Holloway threw himself over me when the second IED detonated, because he absorbed the blast that should have killed us both. Her eyes found Master Sergeant Holloway at the back of the room, tears streaming down his weathered face. Your brother saved my life, Master Sergeant, and I've spent every day since then trying to be worthy of that sacrifice. Holloway moved through the crowd. He stopped in front of Colette. Nathan's letter. The one I gave you. Have you read all of it? Not the ending. I was waiting until the mission was complete. Read it now. He pulled a second envelope from his pocket. This came separately. He mailed it to a different address. Instructions to deliver it only if you survived, only when you were ready. Colette took the envelope. Her fingers trembled as she broke the seal. The room held its breath. Nathan Holloway's voice reached across death. Colette, if you're reading this, you made it. You survived what should have killed you. That means everything we fought for meant something. That means the sacrifice was worth it. Her voice cracked. She steadied herself. I've watched you carry the weight of command for 3 years now. Watched you take impossible shots and make impossible decisions and never once ask for recognition. You taught me that real strength doesn't announce itself. It just shows up when it's needed and does what has to be done. Tears began sliding down her cheeks. Don't carry guilt for surviving. Carry purpose. The ghost isn't what died in Syria. The ghost is what survives, what haunts the enemy, what protects the innocent. You are the ghost now. Make it mean something. She finished reading in silence, but Holloway had read his brother's handwriting before. The last part. It says, tell my brother I love him. Tell him I died doing something that mattered. Tell him I'm proud of the man he became. And tell Wraith 1 that she's the best commanding officer I ever served under. Even if she did make us run too many drills. Laughter broke through the tears, not loud, not long, but enough to release something that had been locked too tight for too long. I'm sorry. Hargrave's voice was rough. He stepped forward. For everything, the briefing, the mess hall, the corridor, all of it, I didn't know. But that's not an excuse. No, it's not. Colette wiped her eyes. But you also learned. That's more than most people manage. Let me make it right, whatever comes next, whatever you need to finish this mission, I'm in. Others stepped forward, Gaines, Ridley, even Captain Mercer. We owe you 12 lives. Gaines's voice was steady. We owe you justice for Task Force Shadow. Whatever you need to end this, you have it. Colette looked at them, these men and women who had transformed from antagonists to allies. Vance is a node, not a source. His interrogation will give us the next link in the chain. Someone recruited him, someone ran him, someone higher up the network planned Syria. What do you need us to do? For now, nothing. Watch, wait, be ready. She folded Nathan's letter carefully. When I identify the final target, I may need operational support. You'll have it. Hargrave's voice carried absolute conviction. Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes, others echoed. For 2 years, she had worked alone. Now in the last place she expected, she had found allies. The ghost was no longer alone. The interrogation lasted 11 hours. Vance broke faster than expected. Names emerged, contacts, handler identities, communication protocols, but the critical information came near the end. The Syria operation, Convoy 7, who planned it? Vance's face crumpled. I don't know the real name, above my level, but my handler mentioned something once. A code name. He swallowed. Kingmaker. Tell me about Kingmaker. Someone high, Pentagon level, maybe higher. My handler said Kingmaker had been planning to take out Shadow for months, had access to everything, deployment schedules, mission briefings. His voice dropped to a whisper. Someone inside, not field level, command level, someone trusted. Behind the glass, Colette's hands clenched into fists. Pentagon level. The hunt was not over. It was just beginning its final phase. The secure transmission arrived at 300 hours, encrypted, routed through channels that officially didn't exist. Colette read the file in darkness. Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense Harrison Calloway, 58 years old, 31 years of service. Decorated veteran, trusted advisor to 3 successive administrations. A spotless record that made suspicion seem absurd, but the evidence told a different story. Financial records showing wealth that far exceeded official income. Communication intercepts that danced around incrimination. Travel patterns that placed him in specific locations when intelligence compromises occurred. The file included an address. Suburban Virginia, 40 minutes from the Pentagon. A house where Calloway would be in 72 hours. A window of approximately 4 hours. You're not going alone. Holloway's voice came from the doorway. I know that look. You're planning to end this yourself, whatever the cost. This is my mission? Nathan died so you could live, not so you could throw that life away on revenge. He stepped into the room. You taught my brother that missions succeed when people work together. That lone wolves get killed. His eyes held hers. Don't dishonor his memory by forgetting what you taught him. Colette was silent. 72 hours, Virginia. Harrison Calloway, Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense. As she handed him the file. He's Kingmaker. He planned Syria. He killed your brother and my team. Holloway read in silence. What's the plan? I make contact, apply pressure, get him to confess on recording. And if he doesn't confess, then we use what we have and hope it's enough. Holloway shook his head. That's not a plan. That's a suicide mission with extra steps. You go in alone, he'll be expecting it. Men like this don't survive 30 years of treason without contingencies. Then what do you suggest? I suggest we bring backup. I suggest we give Hargrave and his team a chance to repay their debt. The military transport lifted off from Phobie Sentinel at 400 hours. Colette watched the base shrink below them, disappearing into the Afghan darkness. 17 hours of flight time. Refueling stops in Germany and the Azores. Hargrave sat across from her in the cargo hold, Gaines beside him, Ridley checking weapons. None of them spoke. None of them needed to. They were hunting the man who had killed their brothers. The house sat quiet in the Virginia evening. Suburban neighborhood, manicured lawns, the kind of place where senior military officials lived in carefully maintained anonymity. Colette had arrived 12 hours early, established surveillance, identified approach vectors, cataloged security measures that seemed minimal. Too minimal. A man who had run a treason network for over a decade should have better protection, unless he was expecting company. Calloway arrived at 1400 hours, driving himself in a personal vehicle, moving with the confident stride of someone who believed their secrets were still safe. Colette waited until he was inside, then moved. The door was unlocked. She moved through the entry with practiced silence, tracking sounds of movement toward a study at the back of the house. Calloway was pouring whiskey when she entered. "Deputy Secretary?" Her voice was conversational. "We need to talk." He turned slowly. "Ah, the ghost." He set down the whiskey. "I wondered when you'd find your way here. You know who I am." "I know everything, Master Sergeant. It's been my job for 30 years. And selling the wrong information to the wrong people when the price is right. Business is business." He gestured to a chair. "Please, sit. If we're going to have this conversation, we might as well be civilized." Colette remained standing. Kingmaker. A dramatic code name. Not my choice. Though I suppose it fits. Kings are made by those who control information. You sold out Task Force Shadow. You got my people killed. I made a strategic decision. His voice carried no remorse. Shadow was becoming problematic, too effective. Certain parties were willing to pay significant sums to ensure your team stopped being a problem. He shrugged. "War is business, Master Sergeant. I simply found a way to profit from both sides. 12 people died. Soldiers die. It's what they do." Calloway's eyes hardened. "I served 20 years in uniform. I've sent thousands of men and women into situations where death was probable. Your team was simply another calculation." Colette felt rage building behind her sternum. She had expected anger, denial, desperate justification. She had not expected indifference. "You don't care. You killed them and you don't care at all." "Caring is a luxury I abandoned decades ago, and this business sentiment is weakness." He reached for his whiskey. "Your team was a hard decision, nothing more. You're recording this, I assume, building a case for prosecution." "Yes." "Good," he smiled. "I was hoping you would." Colette's instincts screamed warning. "What do you mean?" "I mean I've been expecting this moment for 2 years. Since I learned you survived Syria." He set down his glass. "I've had considerable time to prepare." Movement behind her. Colette spun, hand reaching for her weapon. Too late. 2 men emerged from concealed positions. Military trained. Weapons already aimed at her center mass. "Did you really think I would allow myself to be cornered without contingencies?" Calloway stood, straightening his jacket. "You're good, Master Sergeant, possibly the best I've ever encountered, but I've been playing this game since before you were born." "What now, kill me? Add another body to your ledger?" "That was the original plan, eliminate the last loose end." He moved toward the door. "But recent developments have suggested a modification. Your Pentagon handlers aren't as subtle as they believe. I've known about this operation for 72 hours. Colette calculated angles, distances, probabilities. 2 armed hostiles, her weapon still holstered, bad odds. "Take her!" They moved forward, and Colette prepared to fight despite the odds. Prepared to die rather than become leverage for a traitor. The window behind her exploded inward, glass and chaos. Automatic fire and shouting. Bodies moving with the coordinated precision of special operations training. Colette dropped flat as rounds passed overhead, rolled toward cover, drew her weapon. Hargrave came through the shattered window first, his massive frame somehow graceful in tactical movement. Weapon up, eyes scanning. Holloway followed, then Gaines, then Ridley. Every member of the team she had saved. They had followed her home. The firefight lasted 11 seconds. Calloway's 2 guards went down in the first 3 seconds. Center mass, clean kills. Calloway himself made it 4 steps toward a hidden exit before Holloway intercepted him. The Master Sergeant's fist connected with the traitor's jaw. 25 years of service and 2 years of grief behind it. Calloway collapsed unconscious. "Clear!" Hargrave swept the room. "All hostiles down, package secure." Colette rose from cover. How did you know?" "We followed you." Holloway secured Calloway's wrists. Hargrave pulled strings, got us on a transport 6 hours after yours. But why? She looked at them, these men who had traveled halfway around the world, who had entered combat without orders. Because you're one of us now. Hargrave moved to stand beside her. You saved our team, you trusted us with the truth, and we were not about to let you face the final target alone. Family doesn't quit when things get complicated. Gaines holstered his weapon. That's what Nathan taught us, what you taught him, what we finally understand. Colette looked at them, at Hargrave, who had called her a fashion model, at Gaines, who had dismissed her warnings, at Ridley, who had questioned her qualifications. All of them standing here now, ready to die for her. Family. The word felt strange, foreign, like a language she had forgotten how to speak. Thank you. Thank us later. Holloway hauled Calloway upright. We have a traitor to deliver. The cemetery stretched quiet in the morning light. Arlington. Rows of white headstones marking the final rest of those who had served. 6 weeks had passed since Virginia. Calloway was in custody, his network dismantled, the infrastructure that had cost so many American lives destroyed piece by piece. Justice, finally, for Task Force Shadow. Colette stood before 12 headstones arranged in a row. Her team, her family. The rage was gone. The burning need for retribution that had sustained her through impossible circumstances had finally cooled. In its place was something quieter, sadder, the grief she had never allowed herself to feel. You did it. Holloway stood beside her, flowers in his hand for his brother's grave. You found them, all of them, made them pay. It doesn't bring them back. No, nothing does. He knelt, placing flowers at Nathan's headstone. But it means something. They're not forgotten. Their deaths weren't meaningless. Colette looked at the names carved in stone. Nathan was right. In his letter, he said to carry purpose, not guilt, to make survival mean something. She paused. I think I finally understand what he meant. What comes next? The question had haunted her for weeks. The mission was complete. The vendetta finished. For the first time in 2 years, she had no target, no objective. It was terrifying. It was also an opportunity. I've been offered a position, training command, advanced sniper instruction, teaching the next generation what I know. You'd be good at it. Maybe. She turned to face Holloway. Or maybe I'd be hiding, using instruction as an excuse to avoid figuring out who I am when I'm not hunting something. So what's the alternative? Colette smiled. It felt strange on her face, unfamiliar after so long. But somehow right. I don't know yet, and I think that's okay. She looked back at the headstones. Nathan said to live, not just survive. Maybe it's time to figure out what that means. Holloway extended his hand. Whatever you decide, you're not alone anymore. You have people now. Family. She shook his hand, feeling the connection, the belonging, the strange warmth of no longer carrying the weight alone. Thank you for everything. Thank my brother. He's the one who saw something worth saving. They stood together in silence, 2 survivors mourning the dead while looking toward the living. The morning fog began to lift, revealing blue sky beyond the gray. Light after darkness, hope after despair, life after death. 6 months later. Fort Benning, Georgia. The training facility stretched under summer sun, firing lines populated by the next generation of military snipers. Master Sergeant Colette Ashford walked the line with patient intensity. Breathing, her voice carried without shouting. You're holding too long before release. That's causing tremor at the trigger moment. The trainee adjusted, fired, hit center mass at 400 meters. Better. Again. She moved down the line, correcting stances, adjusting grips, delivering the accumulated wisdom of years spent making impossible shots in impossible conditions, teaching others to do what she did naturally. It was good work, meaningful work. Nathan would have approved. After training concluded, she found herself at the base memorial wall. Different faces from Arlington, different names, but the same sacrifice. Instructor Ashford, a young female trainee, approached hesitantly. Private First Class Bridget Callahan, one of the most promising students Colette had seen in months. "Do you have a minute?" "Of course." Bridget stood beside her, looking at the wall. "I wanted to thank you for what you did, for showing me that women can be what? Everything." Bridget's voice carried conviction beyond her years. "Before you arrived, I thought I had to choose, be respected or be myself, prove something, or be authentic." She looked at Colette. "You showed me those aren't contradictions, that being quiet doesn't mean being weak, that being underestimated can be a strength." Colette considered the young woman beside her. "The people who underestimate you will always exist, in every unit, every mission, every stage of your career." She turned to face Bridget. "You can't control that. What you can control is what happens when they learn they were wrong." "What do you mean?" "The moment of revelation. When someone who dismissed you realizes their mistake. That moment is power." Her voice softened. "Use it wisely, not for revenge, not for satisfaction, but for teaching, for showing them that their assumptions hurt everyone." Bridget nodded slowly. "The SEALs who mocked you, they became your allies. They became my family." Colette smiled at the memory. "Hargrave calls once a week. Holloway sends letters. Even Gaines reached out to apologize properly." She paused. "People can change, most won't, but some will if you give them the chance. And the ones who don't change, they face the consequences of their choices, just like everyone else." Colette turned from the wall. "Come on, evening training starts in an hour. I want to show you something about wind reading that your previous instructors probably missed." They walked together toward the range, instructor and student, present and future. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of red and gold that reminded Colette of other sunsets in other places, of blood and loss and the long road that had led her here, but also of survival, of purpose, of the family she had found in the last place she expected. Nathan's letter lived in her quarters now, framed, the words visible every morning when she woke. "Carry purpose, not guilt. Make it mean something. You are the ghost now." She was still a ghost, would always be in some ways. The skills she had developed, the instincts she had honed, the capacity for violence that lived beneath her quiet exterior. But she was also something more now. A teacher, a mentor, a bridge between what special operations had been and what it could become. A reminder that the quiet ones, the still ones, the ones who waited for the wind and then moved with purpose, they were often the ones who saved everything, and sometimes saved themselves.